welcome. Thanks for clicking on this video. If you're watching on YouTube at Anita K, and if you're watching on Rumble, AK Straight Speaks, welcome, welcome, welcome. Before we get going on this video, if you could like, subscribe, share, press all the buttons, click, 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 clickety clack, all that stuff really, really helps. I wanted to talk about Danielle Smith. Happy to see, I mean, this is my non-biased, I guess it is biased. I'm happy to see that she won.
This was the very definition of a hard-fought election. We faced the most expensive, fierce, and coordinated opposition and third-party political campaigns in provincial history.
It was a tight race. They were saying it was tight weeks ago. I went back to look at some old reports.
And the beginning of what is shaping up to be a very tight race.
I don't pride myself on having a crystal ball, but I do think it's going to be close. And I think it's close in narrative. You have two parties that are making a very different case for Alberta. And so there's a stark difference there. And that stark difference is registering very starkly in the polling, evenly split.
Alberta enters this election with the UCP holding 60 of a possible 87 seats. The NDP has 23.
Now, that doesn't look tight to me. I want somebody to explain how that looks tight, a difference of that much. So joining me now is reporter in Lethbridge. He is Naveen Day with Bridge City News. So happy to have him join me. Hello, Naveen.
Hi, thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, so you're, had a very exciting time. It's been a very exciting week. You have Danielle Smith reelected as Premier of Alberta. I just wanted to get a little breakdown from you on what you thought about it. I mean, I'm surprised it was such a tight race. It was so tight. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, she has a pretty harsh rival to contend with in Rachel Notley.
Yeah, and tight is what everyone was saying. And much of the polling indicated that the Alberta NDP were going to take Edmonton, which they did, and the UCP would take rural Alberta. They did. And Calgary was going to be the battleground city, which it was. And I would agree that this race was really tight. The UCP was making campaign promises and funding announcements in healthcare and education. These are two main things that the NDP love to talk about. But on the NDP side, we saw a lot of political attack ads against Danielle Smith, and they were using clips of her from her radio show. Now, often these were seemingly taken out of context, but on the other side, you must remember that as a talk show radio host, it's part of your role to be a provocateur. You want to make those bold statements to grab people's attention. But what they were also trying to do with these attack ads, they were trying to paint Smith as unhinged and irrational so that they can show Notley as stable and steady. And did it work? Well, I'm not sure if it really did, or did it make a difference? We'll see.
You don't think these things can get quite nasty. So you kind of, from your perspective, I mean, there's always a kind of nasty ad campaign. Would you say like that Danielle Smith had nasty campaigns? Did you notice any of that?
Well, I definitely saw like how Danielle Smith was calling out Rachel Notley for her last term. Now, like when she was premier from 2015 to 2019, the economy wasn't the strongest, and so there was a lot of debate on whether like how much of that was her fault and how much of that wasn't. But obviously it did well, and it resonated well with Albertans during the debates.
Yeah, I also think like the economy is a big thing. I think Danielle Smith really cares about the economy and free enterprise. And I feel, and I also care about this, I think that's why I resonate with her, is that she cares about the oil and gas sector. And that's a big, big thing in Alberta. You're a huge province of like natural resources. What do you hear from Albertans? What is your take on how important that industry is to Albertans?
Well, it sounds like the NDP was kind of like trying to shift away from oil and gas and into more renewable energies. But what about the other countries? What about countries that need Alberta energy and Alberta oil, Alberta gas? And how are we going to get those products to market? Are these countries going to continue buying from other countries that don't have like the kind of standards that we have in Canada? And the way we brush our coal and the way our energy is clean and the high standards to which it's produced, it seems like a no-brainer to purchase from Canada. So it's hard to understand why the NDP would want to keep all of that into the ground and affect jobs.
Yeah, correct. Things that they campaigned on, healthcare and education. How do you think that fared for both of them? Obviously, not as well for Rachel Notley. But what were some of the strong points of Danielle Smith regarding healthcare or education?
Why we are spending so much money on healthcare, and yet there's a doctor shortage. And I think that's what really resonated with Albertans, is because like doctors are getting like some of the highest salaries in the country. So why are we short doctors? And why are our wait times so long? And this is not just like an Alberta thing. This is a Canada thing. Like when you compare Canada's healthcare system to Australia's, which has a similar healthcare system and a similar population density, why are their wait times lower than ours? And so, I mean, and I think it resonated well with Albertans that Smith would raise those questions, and not just to Alberta Health, but also to our federal government.
Now, you mentioned earlier that this is a tight race. It was kind of like razor thin, the kind of some of the press was saying, and I was skeptical as to whether they were telling the truth or not, but it sounds like they are. So what do you know about the seats? Like Danielle Smith has how many?
So the UCP have 49 right now. And I think as the numbers were coming in on Monday night, it was a reasonable conclusion that the UCP were going to win that majority. But the surprise to many Albertans was just how slim that majority is. So the UCP went from having 63 seats down to 49, which is still in majority territory, but barely. And of course, like we've got Jennifer Johnson, the Lacombe-Ponoka candidate. She's already been told that she won't be in caucus and they need to select a speaker. So that lowers the split even more because NDP have 38 seats. So I think Albertans who are either conservative or on the fence about Danielle Smith, they're still positive about the outcome of the election because she's had some time in office to adjust and get used to the role. And now she has a shot at doing a full term and showing what she really can do. And I think with having a weaker majority, the NDP are more in a position to hold the UCP accountable. And I think that may actually make things a little bit tough for the UCP moving forward in areas, especially where there's an orange wave, including the city of Edmonton. Because like, what can the UCP do to bridge that gap? Like, how are they going to find that soft middle ground? Like, and not just like in orange areas, but also like with things like public sector unions.
So, she does kind of have her work cut out for her. It's not like a lead by a massive margin. It is the Notley is chasing her tail a little bit, right? What would you say?
Right. It's not a hell yes, but it's definitely not like a very, very quiet yes. It's kind of like more in the middle. And of course, like the Smith government really does have to be careful because there is a more powerful NDP this time.
Interesting. Oh, it's so interesting to hear your take on this. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today. Naveen Day from Bridge City News. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, I mean, it did end up being a fairly tight race, but I'm glad to see her come through. I'm glad she prevailed. It's just that she's a different voice, and we need a voice like hers. We need someone that stands up for freedom. And sometimes when you stand up for freedom, you're the person that the legacy media wants to squash. So after she won, I did find it interesting to watch my old colleague, Donna Friesen, how she interviewed her.
Welcome back to Alberta. With me from Calgary is Premier Danielle Smith. Premier Smith, congratulations. Thanks, Donna. You know, you said in your speech last night, your oath is to serve all Albertans, no matter how they voted. You were shut out of Edmonton, though. You lost seats to the NDP in Calgary, including some of your top cabinet ministers, and you did run some pretty negative attack ads during the campaign. Is that all really behind you now?
Well, I would say that I was on the receiving end of a pretty negative advertising campaign for not.
I do find it, I just want to stop it there for a sec, how the first question is just negative. Oh, you had negative, you lost some seats in Edmonton and Calgary to the NDP. You had negative attack ad campaigns. It's like you're starting negative. I'm pretty sure that when Jason Kenney won the election in 2019, you wouldn't speak to someone off the bat like that. Coldness there. There's a little bit of terseness. You can tell there's a little bit of, between them. And it's just starting off negative rather than saying congratulations and actually mean it, and then go ahead and start asking some questions. Not that you have to like every single politician, but there's just like maybe a sour vibe, which is interesting.
Maybe the first policy point you made in your acceptance speech was that you're not going to raise taxes without a referendum. Where are you going to raise the money to improve things like healthcare and education?
One of the things that we discovered is that by reducing tax rates, you could actually increase revenue. We brought our tax rate from 12% down to 8% on our job creators, and investment flowed into our province. We now have more corporate income tax than we have in our history. And that's going to be our message is Alberta's open for business. Alberta is calling. We want to continue to have jobs and investment and people coming here, because as we grow our economy, that grows our revenues, which will allow us to continue to meet those priorities of Albertans. And I'm looking forward to that continuing. And I think that's what Albertans voted for last night.
It's not all about raising taxes. It's not all about gouging your fellow citizens who are already being gouged by inflation, and we're already overtaxed to death as it is. Taxes aren't the only ways. And as she just explained in that clip, they're looking at more entrepreneurial, more ways of business, more ways of cultivating funds rather than just gouging the pockets of everyday citizens. Raising your taxes. It's good to have a referendum because you should be asking the people what they think. We should be voting on things like we should have been voting on things all along. Lockdowns and closing businesses and all the things that happened to us in the schools, there should have always been a public referendum on those things. We're the public, we're the taxpayer, we pay for the government. It's like you are driving Canadians, or the current Liberals are almost driving Canadians into poverty on purpose. And it's nice to see a premier stand up and say, hey, you know what? There are other ways. We're going to sort this out in other ways.
We need to come together, no matter how we have voted, to stand shoulder to shoulder against soon-to-be announced Ottawa policies that would significantly harm our provincial economy. Now, we have been made aware that in the coming weeks, Justin Trudeau is planning on bringing forward new restrictions on electricity generation from natural gas that will not only massively increase your power bills, but will also endanger the integrity and reliability of our entire power grid, which we rely on during our cold and dark Alberta winters. In addition, the Prime Minister is already ready to introduce a de facto production cap on our oil and gas sector that, if implemented, will result in tens of thousands of jobs lost, tens of billions in lost investment, damage our province's fiscal position, and bring economic hardship to Albertans. Now, I've made myself clear on this matter to the Prime Minister in person and in public, but I feel we need to do it again. Let me be clear, this is not a road we can afford to go down. If he persists, he will be hurting Canadians from coast to coast, and he will strain the patience and goodwill of Albertans in an unprecedented fashion.
Well, that's a wrap from me. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you could like and subscribe and share, that would be great. I'm on YouTube, Anita K, on Rumble, AK Straight Speaks. If you're watching me on Awake Freedom TV, you just search for the channel Anita K, and that's on your Roku TV. Also, anitakrishna.com. I do have a website there, so if you like what you see, you can check out that page. If you really like what you see, if you want to consider donating a little bit, that would help me a lot and goes a long way towards me working on some future projects. And I always have something on the go. So thanks so much for watching today. We will see you next time. Always check out some information in the description if you want to find a way to get a hold of me. I do read all the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and bye for now.